Hey, good morning. Welcome to Odd Music episode number 378. What's up, Scott?
Hey, how's it going?
Go pretty good, man. Go pretty good.
It's the eve before Halloween.
Yes.
Used to be known as Devil's Night. I don't hear it called that anymore, really.
Detroit was the one that kind of monikered that. And of course,
Yeah.
Devil's Night back in the day was a rough night in Detroit. Fires and everything else. I mean, it wasn't up till just in the last 20 years they've really reined it in, but it was really bad around the Detroit area, especially downtown Detroit and in the suburbs of parts of Detroit there, where people lived, were also just fires. I mean, it was constant fires. I mean, it was really bad. And it was almost like a purge night without being a full-on purge.
Yeah.
Is what I would describe it. And it was referenced as Devil's Night. I grew up knowing what Devil's Night was. Everybody always referred to tonight as Devil's Night.
Yeah, when we moved here from New England, we'd never heard that phrase. And it was insane. Like, we're watching the news and they're just showing houses burning everywhere. It's like, what the heck is going on?
Now, according to Wikipedia, I pulled it up real quick. I didn't even think to look at this. It's just something I grew up with, but it's Mischief Night. Was an informal holiday in which children, teenagers, adults engage in jokes, pranks, vandalism, or parties. It's been known by a variety of names, including Devil's Night, particular in Detroit, and then Gate Night, Goosey Night, Moving Night, Cabbage Night, Mystery Night, and Mat Night. I've never heard of anything other than Devil's Night, but I have heard the Mischief Night. The earliest use of the phrase Mischief Night was 1790. So, and it was in England, stuff like that. So I probably heard it for some movie or TV show from England or something like that. But yeah, it's like different places around the East Coast, like Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Philadelphia. They refer to Mischief Night. But it's the Great Lakes region, particularly Michigan, that talks about it as Devil's Night. So
yeah.
And that was what really is to say from the late 60s through the 90s, widespread vandalism and arson. And it was really bad.
Was it Archer? I think Archer is who really fought against it, if I remember correctly, and really got it to go away.
Yeah, it says right here, after Brutal's Devil's Night in 1994, Mayor Dennis Archer promised residents arson would not be tolerated. In 95, they organized established Angels Night, which is what they call
That's right.
On and around October 29th through the 31st. And each year, more than 50,000 volunteers gather to patrol neighborhoods in the city. They were using CB radios and then eventually cell phones. Things like that. And then the drop in reported fires for the year 2008 was credited to the Angels Night program. That same year, they had 35,000 volunteers to the city, according to Daniel Sharon, who's a spokesperson to then Mayor Ken Cockrell Jr. And then as a result, the efforts number of fires decreased at near ordinary levels in the first decade in the 21st century. 2010, the number of reported fires increased to 169. There's a 42% increase compared to the previous year. And then subsequently, we've seen a decline. 2015 saw like 52 fires. Only 24 were considered possibly arson. And then 2017 saw the lowest, was just 21 recorded fires. So it's kind of, they've gotten it under control. And I think it's also those that were really into causing the problem have either died, gotten too old, or finally just moved on.
Yeah. But it was quite a turnaround. I don't think Mayor Archer gets enough credit today for where Detroit's at now. He really did a lot to start turning that ship around. Detroit was a disaster back then.
Well, he after he left office and Kwame Kilpatrick came in, Kwame took credit for everything Archer had already put in place, including the 2006 Super Bowl, the All-Star games, all the stuff that was coming to Detroit during his term.
Right, which was set up through Archer.
Yeah.
And they ran Archer out of town, which... it was bad. He was such a good guy.
I'll tell you off air something I know.
Okay.
But I won't talk about that on there.
Yeah.
Because
what I do know is Kilpatrick was no good.
Kilpatrick was no good. Archer, I liked Archer. I think he was a good mayor. And he was not a perfect man. Nobody is. But I think he did a great job. Now we've had the current mayor of Detroit. Has been doing a good job and really brought about a completely different change after the whole Kwame Kilpatrick debacles. And the thing with Kwame, it was like he was hiring all his family and friends, and they were getting jobs of nothing, making over $100,000 a year. And it really brought him down though was he was his buying that Navigator. There was the Navigator debacle that really brought down the investigation. Everything.
Rob Welchek, wasn't it him?
Welchek, I think, was a big one behind that. But yeah, I think all the main news channels, 2, 4, and 7.
He was a big one, but there was another guy who was there was one journalist in particular who really hounded him though, and he ended up leaving the city. He went either he retired altogether or he went to another completely different market to do reporting. But Kilpatrick hated him. I can't remember his name.
Let's see here. Oh, I know. I think he passed away. It was Steve from Channel 7.
Yes.
Oh God, what's his name here? Let me see. Let me pull this up here real quick. Steve Wilson. Yeah, I believe Steve Wilson passed away. Yeah, Steve Wilson, Channel 7.
Hound dog on him.
Yeah, he's the one that found out everything. I knew it was him.
He was like hiding in bushes, popping out, and like he was not letting Kilpatrick do anything.
No, he definitely was not. Maybe he's still around. I mean, I know he retired. He must have retired then. I thought he passed, but
yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, he's. It says as well. He's on Twitter, and I'll have to follow him. He joined in 2010. Says he's a former investigative reporter from Channel 7 Detroit. Currently developing an online investigative reporting website. Okay. Let's see here. You know what? He hasn't posted since 2010. I don't know if he's still alive or not. I keep thinking he passed. For some reason.
That sounds familiar.
But let's see here. But yeah, he did a ton of investigations. He was ruthless in terms of getting the truth. And that's what it was. Unlike, there's so many out there. It's you find out about some of these people and they really don't care about the truth, but they, will do their investigations, stuff like that.
They care about the quick, shocking. They'll expose something for the quick shock value.
Yeah.
Just to get the ratings and the followers. But then they'll drop the story. Like they won't stay on the story to make sure it gets followed through, or anything. They'll just move on to the next shocking thing. They're just looking for a quick like is all they're doing. Wilson though stayed on it, but Kilpatrick. We won't get too deep into the woods on this, but the thing I really want to come out is the Manoogian Mansion stuff.
Well, yeah, they had that whole thing. Remember the one girl got killed. Her family's been trying for years to show where it was tied into that.
I had a friend whose wife was an EMS person, and I talked to her. She was working that night, and she got the call there, and they picked up the people, dropped them off, and the next day, all the reports they filed with the hospital were all gone.
Yeah,
and both parties had key people at that party, and so it magically went away, everything.
Yeah, I guess he's still alive. I just haven't seen anything on him in a while, and there's really not much in the last few years, so he's probably just retired.
He's got to be up there in age.
Well, yeah, he was reporting back in the 60s, so he'd been around for a long time. But yeah, I like Steve Wilson in that, and he brought out a lot, and people still talk. I see stuff every once in a while like, oh, we should forgive and all this stuff, and people, talked back when Kwame and that stuff. It's like, no, I don't care who it is, and
what's scary is the number of people who would still vote for him.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely
been proven he stole so much from the city.
Well, I mean, he got told he had to replace like $30 million or something like that.
Yeah. Wasn't the guy from was it Quicken? Somebody was his backer big time.
Quicken's Dan Gilbert, isn't it?
Was it him?
No.
Some major person in Detroit was a massive backer of him and paid him even while he was in jail. He was collecting like a salary or something. Like it was weird. But
yeah. Oh, anyway. It was a contractor, Bobby Ferguson.
Bobby Ferguson, that's right. And that was another one they did.
He got sentenced. Sorry, he got sentenced. So
yeah, he went to jail.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think it was Dan Gilbert because I think Gilbert wouldn't been able to do everything he's done for the city in terms of buildings and things like that. So I think that's tough. But yeah, so anyway, we don't talk politics on the show much. But we'll talk some history politics.
Yeah.
And and I know here in Michigan, open early voting's available now. I did go an early vote. There you go. That's who I voted for. Hut Fett. Yep.
Did you really go early vote?
I did.
Yeah, we did too. So what day did you go?
I went yesterday morning.
Okay, so so yesterday was Tuesday. So
Tuesday,
how
and I
did
did it.
that go?
Well, I worked all weekend, of course, but I went yesterday morning because I figured, well, it's Tuesday. Most people be working. It'll be quiet. And sure enough, we walked in 8 o'clock when they opened, walked right through, did the voting, did it out, and I was out of there by 8:10.
So we voted on the weekend.
And I bet
It
it's
was
busy.
like election day. So we went Sunday. Saturday was the first day for early voting.
Mm-hmm.
We went Sunday. It took a half hour to get through the line, and they had multiple lines going, processing everybody. The atmosphere, it felt like election day. Everyone had high energy. Everyone was excited and good spirits. Everybody's talking with each other in line. It flowed really well. Jill and I are working the general election next Tuesday.
Okay.
And so some of the workers I knew through training. So I talked to them briefly, and they said the day before at our precinct, they had 1,500 people. The line was more than double what it was when I was there. They had over 1,500 people the day before. They said it felt like like the typical general election.
And what I like about this early voting is one, to leave the pressures at the poll of having just tons of people there on just one day. Number two is there's a lot of people that are like, they're rushing from work to try to get to the polls because not every business closed. You get some that do. I believe like the automotive companies, they've negotiated where they're closed on election days. Some of the schools have done that now mainly because they got people going into their buildings. So, but not everybody has that luxury of not being able to take the day off to work to go vote whenever. So I like that. And I like that it wasn't fill it out, put it in an envelope, and we'll get to it later. You're actually putting it into a machine. So it's being counted right then and there.
Yep, they are tabulated right away for early voting. And absentee, now keep in mind, different counties might do it different. But at least in our county, the end of every day, the ballot boxes are emptied for the absentee votes, and they are processed that day. They're tabulated. Now, there's a technicality here. They're processed. They're put through the machine and read, but the final tally can't be run until election day. So, but it's recorded, and it will know if you cast a ballot, so that if you come on the general election day and when I scan your license, it's going to give me a big red thing saying they already cast their absentee vote. So I'll know. Now, if you didn't, you're going to have to go to the township and they'll match your signatures, do all that. There's a way where they can verify.
Right.
And you can contest it if it wasn't your vote, and you'll be allowed to vote. But
I had it with, I had a few years back where they sent me an absentee ballot and I chose not to use it. So I went in and they said, well, you got an absentee ballot. I was like, well, I didn't submit it. It's not been, and then we got
but you have to bring it.
Yeah.
So you have to bring it, and they have,
and then they can verify that you haven't filled it out. And then
correct. That's the worry. So if you do have an absentee ballot, they also changed too what you can do with it. So if you've lost it, don't worry. You can still vote, but there will be, it's a little annoying, but it has to be done to protect the integrity of the election so nobody double votes. You will have to sign something and have that ballot invalidated. So if it gets cast again down the road, it won't process. And then you'll be issued one. But if you have it with you, you can either drop it off in the drop box, or you can even bring it with you filled out, and then you can go and put it in they now allow you to put it in the voting machine so you can see it tabulated. So you can see that. So that's a cool feature as well.
Now, the one thing I found interesting was when we went in, of course, you show your ID at one station, they tell you which precinct to go to, and they had two different rooms set up, same room, but they'd split it. And certain precincts were to one side, certain precincts to the other side. So we went in, give an ID. Okay, again, they said, okay, you're precinct 7. So and they checked the school district. Okay, I'm Lincoln School Districts. And what they did was they put stuff in the computer there, and they printed the ballot right then and there. They were not pre-printed.
That's what they did with the early voting, because you have every precinct, a lot of them have their own ballots because different people are running, different millages, all these different things. So I was wondering, like, how are they going to handle managing 30 different ballot types? And that's what they did. They had the machine right there, and it printed off your ballot with your district on it. So it was really cool to do it. Hey, we got International Kevin joining us in from France.
He's from France. He is not a conehead.
That's right. Hey, viva la France. I don't know any French, so French fries. That's all I know.
Actually, that's Belgium, I believe.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, you know a Belgian person, especially
Yeah.
older, they will tell you every conversation and remind you that they invented the
Yeah.
French stole it from us.
Yeah. Kent piped in, so that he went to Belleville City Hall to vote on Saturday morning, and they already had about 60 people vote.
Nice.
So, and that, yeah, I think a lot of people have gone early, and it's going to be spread out through the whole time. I think Sunday is the last day for early voting, and then Tuesday. So,
yeah, one thing that was happening this past weekend, which is kind of sad, in Oregon and Washington. Did you see this?
they blew up the ballot box.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
here it is. Here, this is CNN. So it's not a right-wing news network at all reporting on it. But Oregon and Washington, hundreds of ballots were destroyed. So this is a new thing now. This is also a good thing. Why, like, at least for us, I don't know what the rules are out there where they empty the ballot box every day and process them. So unfortunately, whoever's ballots were destroyed, no one's going to know whose were cast. But if that happened here, and you know what day you dropped off your ballot and you know that happened, you could still show up to vote, and we would, when we process it, we would be able to tell you if your ballot was counted or
So
not. If
were
not,
they not?
you would be allowed to.
Were they not empty them every day? Or
I don't know what they do out there.
okay,
We do.
I would
here.
assume they'd empty them every day everywhere because
I would hope.
Yeah, I mean, you
But
got
the
hundreds
rules
of
are-
ballots in the boxes.
yeah.
I mean, I would empty them. They should at least empty them every day just
They
to
should.
lock them up because weather and everything else. So
Right. It's just, I don't, every state has their own election laws. So I don't know what
Yeah.
theirs are out there, but I would assume that they do empty them every day. But,
Yeah.
that's sad that people need to allow, this is democracy, us voting, casting our ballots. And it's important. I have my own views politically, but I want the process to be as much integrity as possible, which is why I'm
Yes.
part of it. And I really, actually, it's given me a lot of comfort being part of the process because I see how many checks and balances there are. You really, the software side of things is one thing. People can program things behind the scenes and you have no way of knowing what it's doing behind the scenes. But as far as the people, in my experience, everyone loves being part of the process. There's so many checks and balances. You would have to have about 10 people being in cahoots to pull it off, to do something wrong. Now, if that happened, which is video from the past election where you see there was a whole team of people. So short of that, though, you couldn't do it. If one person in a group was trying something, the others would catch it. Right. So overall, I would say, no election in the world is ever going to be secure, but I still feel we're probably one of the most secure elections in the world.
Yes.
Still.
And I think so. I agree with that. I think it's just, and it's the process, and that's one thing I think people would fight for is the ability to continue to have that. We don't always agree, and in the last several years, there's been more division among us on so many different levels. But I can say this: regardless of what people will say on one side or another against the other when it comes to the election and voting, everybody says basically the same thing. They want the right to vote. They should have the right to be heard and exist. You may not agree with the results, but as long as it was done, it was a fair and accurate election where everything was done properly, then you don't agree with it, you go back and you vote the next time to try to change things.
Yeah, well, that's the key. It has to be done properly. The 2020 election, regardless of, even if there was not one single fraudulent vote ever cast, the fact remains you had 6 states illegally change their election law by going around their state legislatures. That was unconstitutional, and those 6 states should have had their elections invalidated. It's that simple. There are rules in place on how all the states can change law. If you go through your state legislature, you can change whatever laws you want, but governors don't have the power to just bypass their state legislatures.
Yeah, governors or even a president should not have the right to just automatically write a executive order changing the law.
Correct. That should not be allowed, no matter who's in power. That's and while I am personally, at my core, I like same-day voting because any rule you make, no matter how well intended, any rule you make to make it easier and the more time you add to the process and the easier you make it for people to access, it's also easier to cheat. It's just a fact. So the easier you make it, the more cheating can happen. It's just the way it is, even by people unassociated with parties or anything. Even with us going electronic, that's to make things easier. Well, there could be a hack by a foreign entity. There could be people manipulating stuff. Things can happen. It's just the way it is. We live in a technological. I mean, every major company now has hacks constantly. So,
well, it's almost every week I get something saying, "Oh, your information was leaked. This happened or that happened," or stuff like that. It's I keep getting stuff pop up. Your information for sale on the dark web. It's like, I got nothing to do about it now.
The part I don't understand though is Whitmer and her little sidekick there. Was it Nestle? I forget whoever's handles the voting side. Mm-hmm. They've already come out and said we won't know our results until about 48 hours after. So with all the early votes being tabulated as they come in, all of the absentee ballots being processed as they come in, and then you just hit a button on election day and we'll know those totals, and people being processed electronically day of, how are we not going to know for 48 hours?
Well,
that makes
I think
no sense.
I kind of see where they're going with some of this stuff. And I think what it is one is, definitely need to make sure that nobody's doing anything fraud and dumping votes in after the fact once they know the results to go one way or another. Number two is they should treat it like here's the unofficial results, and then they go through the ballots themselves to make sure that when they were registered in, they were registered properly. I mean, that's what they always do. They always manually count the ballots anyways, to a point, especially when they're close. In terms of knowing the numbers, right, and then knowing the numbers, I personally am for them not knowing any current percentages of where people have voted on anything until after the polls have closed on Tuesday.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean is there's a difference between processing and tallying. I'm saying tallying, but day of election is when they can tally it. It'll be all the information will be in there, but it won't be tallied, is my understanding.
Yeah, and not one person should know any of those numbers.
Correct.
About that stuff either. So I think that's good there. Yep. Yeah, Mom, we're talking a little politics. We're not talking any one-sided or the other. We're kind of talking
I feel like
process.
We're just talking about process.
Yeah. So because it is what it is for this week. I mean, I am personally looking forward, Mom and I talked about this morning, to Wednesday morning for one reason and one reason only.
No more
when I turn on the news. When I turn on the news, no more freaking commercials about politicians.
I know.
I am sick of every single one. That's why my stance has been for this election season, none of the above. But and here's the thing. That's my official out there. How I vote is my personal private policy on what I want to do. But I get so tired of the same ads 50,000 times. We mute the TV all the time because I'm just tired of hearing them all. It's nothing new. It's nothing different. They've not said anything that's changed anything over the last 4 months, and it's just annoying. My phone on my Verizon phone actually blocks almost all the texts. I had one come through and I blocked them and put stop. The phone calls I have set up for a spam filter. Just if I don't know what that number is, it pretty much get blocked. So,
well, part of the problem too is they changed election campaign, the campaign financing rules, and they made these super PACs where the candidates aren't even allowed to coordinate with those super PACs. They have to be independent.
Yep.
And those super PACs can do anything they want, and they can put out whatever they want. And these ads are it's so information overload now. But it's funny, it's information overload without giving information. And it becomes all this white noise. And none of these, like on the news, they're talking about, well, these undecided voters. Do we really have undecided voters at this point? Everyone knows who
you have people. You have people like me that when they come up to you, who are you voting for? I'm not telling you.
Well, that's it. If you're undecided, you're either saying it because you don't want to say you're not going to vote. Yeah. You don't want to listen to someone be like, oh, well, you have to vote. Or you're saying it because you don't feel like talking about who you're voting for. There is no one out there who's like, I just don't know the difference between the two. If you like Harris, you know what she stands for, you're going to vote for her. If you like Trump, you know what he stands for, you're going to vote for him. Like, there's no one. If you're undecided at this point, you probably shouldn't vote if you're truly undecided.
Well, I mean, at this point in time, you got the main two, and then you get all the other ones between the Libertarian, Green parties, and all that stuff that will get votes. But or you write in. My name is spelled Brett. Last name is
P-I-N-S-O-N. Two T's. Batman.
Or, yep, as Kevin has told us, the moms were in here. Batman. I would, I would actually put in Bruce Wayne, and get the full name. But I can tell you this: it's neat the process when it's going on properly.
Yep.
I appreciate the fact that we live in a country where we have the ability to truly make changes through this. And when it comes to the politicians, I really wish we could just enforce term limits on every single one in every single place. So, yep. Jared Goff.
He'd have to take a pay cut though to become president. So
actually, I don't think he's old enough to be president. You have to be 35.
He's not 35.
No, he's like 29.
Oh my god.
So speaking of them, did you see the score of that game the other night?
Oh my god. What was really weird wasn't
the Titans.
Yeah.
He's 30. He just turned 30. Jared Goff just turned 30. So he is not eligible to be president of the United States according to the Constitution.
Maybe he self-identifies as 35 though.
According to the Constitution, it doesn't matter. But the Lions won 52-14, and Goff really wasn't the superstar of that. It was everybody else. I gotta love
the secondary teams, and the
defense was killing it.
What was weird about that game, though, to have that kind of score, but the numbers didn't indicate that. Like the rushing yards, passing yards, because they kept turning over the ball near their goal line. So the Lions only had to get a little bit of yardage to get a touchdown.
Yeah.
So they had like normal yardage, but this insane score.
Yeah, I heard that Jerry Jones from the Dallas Cowboys saw that score and said, see, they continue to run up the score on our Cowboys by doing it against the Titans.
I gotta say, if you look at the Lions, I've had my share of criticism of the Lions over the years, mostly with the ownership. But I tell you, if you look at it, we're at a solid. We had the second half of the season 2 years ago, last season, and this season. You put that all together, the way they've been performing for 2 solid years now, it's insane how they've been.
Well, I mean, really, I saw something the other day, and I'm gonna see if I
Are they the best team in football for a 2-year span?
Pretty darn close, yeah. But since Dan Campbell came in, I'm trying to see if I can find the actual stats here. He came in. Let's see here. 2021.
Okay, so 3 years ago.
So this is his 4th season.
Gotcha.
And that, so now the first year he came in, you got to remember that year coming in, you're not going to make such a huge change because they came in to a mess, and that was also what it was. Is the new owner, who was actually the daughter of the previous owners, basically sat him down, sat the GM down, and said she's not going to get in the way, and she wanted them to do what they had to do. So that first year they were 3-13 with 1 tie. And people are like, oh, same old Lions, nothing changed. I personally was watching that year saying, okay, this is not the same Lions. They're not winning, but they had a lot they had to figure out. They had to get different people in place. They were finishing up some contracts. Nobody was going to trade for some of these guys because they didn't want to play. So they had to
do one thing on that, though, saying she wouldn't get in the way.
Yeah.
I do think she was a huge catalyst. She had a athletic background. She was competitive, and she wanted winners. Yes. And so it was where she knows where to step out of the way for sure, but she also knows it flows from the top down, the attitude.
Yes.
And she wanted to win. And remember at the time, correct me if I'm wrong, your memory's far better on this stuff than mine, but it was Jeff Caldwell just before Dan Campbell, right? Or did we have someone in between?
See, now I'm blanking on that. But Sheila Ford Hamp is the current principal owner and chairman for Detroit Lions. It was her mother, Martha Firestone Ford, and then of course her father before when he passed, William Clay Ford, that ran it beforehand. That really they should have stepped aside 20 years ago.
Yes.
Uh,
A
and
lot of
that
people are
so
mad when Caldwell was let go, but it was needed. I liked Caldwell as a person, and
yeah,
he was good for a city whose goal
yeah.
is
It was
focusing on making to
Matt.
the playoffs.
It was Matt Patricia before Dan Campbell.
That's it. It was Caldwell,
And
then
it's
Patricia.
Caldwell before that. I like Caldwell, but he just didn't. He got the team. They made it to the playoffs twice, 2014, 2016. He was an 0-2 record. He just couldn't get
Yeah,
through that.
Jim Caldwell.
Really, Steve Mariucci into Rob Marinelli is where things were really, really bad. But part of that too was the general manager at the time was bad. So
Well, and Mariucci was a Hall of Famer coach,
yeah.
and he couldn't do anything to this team. Like he
Well,
had
the
no.
problem was the owners. And when you had
Yep.
The parents basically saying, "Oh well, we love these guys," and they kept who was it? Who was the GM that everybody wanted to fire? Matt Millen.
Millen. Yeah,
Yeah,
Millen.
and I mean, people were literally sticking in signs into Ford Field to hold up and getting thrown out of the stadium,
And
and
then
they
they
were chanting.
renewed the contract when everyone thought he should be fired. They renewed it.
And that's because the mom and dad, Martha and William Clay, they said, "Well, he's like a son to us." It's like
Right.
no. So when the daughter, when Sheila was able, Ford Ham was able to take over, she's not running it like where they're all family. She, it's just like everybody. You say you love these guys, stuff like that, but it's just the same thing. It gets down to it. It's a business. You got to win it, and if they're not winning, you got to go. And as much as I love Campbell's speeches after the games, and he talks about he loves you guys, and that's where they should be. They should be a team cohesive. But when it comes down to at the end of the season, things like that, when they got to make changes, you got to look at what's best for the team going forward. And sometimes somebody may not be that best for that team going forward because they just can't fulfill what's needed. But I can tell you this: the team has, with the loss of Hutch.
Oh my God, they stepped up.
Yeah, everybody was worried, like, oh man, they're done. They're not.
They're done.
Hutch is a leader. He was at the game this past Sunday too. He was up in one of the boxes. He's got his leg up, and when I told Mom this, I said when he has the ability to start standing up on crutches, I think for the home games he'll be on the sideline. He'll be with those guys as much as he can. And the thing is, it's not always about just being on the field. It's about being a leader, period. And the nice thing is all these other guys are stepping up and being leaders and being effective. And Jared Goff as a quarterback has been great as a leader. You've got Hutch as a leader. You got all these other guys. I want to say Ron's been great out there. Montgomery's been great. New kicker Bates, man, I love that guy. He just been nailing those 40, 50-yard kicks.
He's been insane.
And if you see his story, he just a few years ago, he thought he was done. He's like, the dream's done. It's never going to happen. He was working at like a Kroger or something like that. And then he gets the chance to go with the Michigan Panthers, and he comes out and starts hitting those 63-yard bombs. I mean, he's just nailing them. And everybody's saying the Lions got to get him. And they gave him the chance. He came in. We watched him at the practice we went to, and he's got good form. He's got good kicks. I think he's got a long career ahead of him with the Lions. And he's been having, there's a couple of these games, he's been the game saver. So
it also shows, I think, in hindsight, our coach Dan Campbell.
Yep.
The choices he made at fourth down last year versus this year. I think he has much more faith in his kicker this year, is what's coming out.
But if you look at, like I said, you look at the record, we were talking about that initially and we got way off of that, but 3-13-1, the 22, he went 9-8, and even that first 6, they were like, oh, same old Lions. Wasn't. They were just trying to gel. And once they gelled, they went forward. And then last year we get to 12-5.
What was the record the second half of that season, 2 seasons ago?
In 23 or 22?
22.
I believe that's when they won most of their games. They were like 0-6, and then they went
were like 8-1 or something. Stretch or something.
Well, 9-2 is what they would end. I think they ended up in. They lost like the first 6, I believe, and then they went 9-2.
Okay,
and they missed the playoffs like just by a hair.
Right.
And then last year they made it through the playoffs and all the way into the league championship, basically. And unfortunately, they didn't make it, but that was just great. And then you got this year. 6-1 is the best start for a Lions team since the 50s. And that was last time they won what time was the world championship, wasn't the Super Bowl. And that, so it's just great to see this because it's been very, what the Lions have done the last 3 years has been really instrumental in firing up the entire city, because we saw that with the Lions, the
And I
Red
think it
Wings.
carried over to the Tigers.
Yeah, with the Lions, you get to the Tigers carried it over with what they did this year. The Red Wings are coming out, and they're none of them want to give. They're not coming out just to skate and they're trying to say, hey, we can't let these guys show us up. And next step's gonna be the Pistons. Can the Pistons start coming out and do better than last year and actually win some games?
Yeah. Winning is contagious.
Yes,
having that attitude to fight through it, and in a weird way, obviously, you never wish anyone to get hurt. But Hutchinson getting hurt may have really been a good thing for the team, because it's creating the scenario for these other people who maybe look to him to handle the weight.
Yeah,
they're now rising up. Even go all the way back to like Mike Utley when he got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
After he got hurt, the team rallied around him so much. Wasn't that when they had their like really amazing season?
Yeah, they came out and they
like won a ton of games after that.
Because
they won for him.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Hutch is like he said from day one, I'm here. I'm a local guy. I want to play for the Lions, and I want to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
I want to do it for he wanted to do it for City of Detroit, State of Michigan, and for himself.
And with other people on the sports radio, they were talking to some sports news guys from New York. And those guys were saying how the Lion, it sounds like these other cities, at least the sports people, are like cheering for the Lions now. And they're saying how we're probably the most fun team to watch now.
Yeah.
Out of all the teams, like people are just enjoying it. And
part of it is because they're always like, okay, what's Campbell going to do? Because he still does some crazy stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That goes against the grain. Yeah. But the thing is this.
But we have so many options now.
He's brought grit to the city. He's brought, the tenaciousness to play, the willing to win, the wanting to win, and the wanting to be there. And every single player is like, I don't want to go anywhere else. I want to play here. I don't want. And before it was kind of like, yeah, I got a paycheck. I'm going to go do whatever,
Right.
And that's what it felt like for years. So.
Yeah, I think it is. Oh man, could you imagine the whole what if scenario? You have Barry Sanders on this team.
Yeah. If we'd had the ownership and this type of caliber of coaching, and other players want to be there with Barry Sanders, they would have been unstoppable.
God. Yeah, Barry, come out of retirement. We gotta get you in there for at least one run.
Yeah, they need to give him like a contract just enough that when they do make the Super Bowl, that he gets a ring.
Yep.
So, but yeah, it's been great to watch, and even when I don't get to see the games, just keeping up with it. Sometimes I'm working on Sundays when that's going on, but definitely really enjoying the Lions and all that this year. Glad to see that. So, but there's let's cover this real quick before I got some news that dropped today. But let's cover the Kickstarter real quick.
All right, let's get that up. Here we go. All right, I'll post the link to the Kickstarter in the comments here for Last Light issue number 1. We've got just under $1,100 raised, 24 backers here. We got to hit 1,500 for our minimum goal. We're well within the range of that, but we really want to surpass that. Our real goal is like 3,000 to 5,000 as a low end, and if somebody out there has buku bucks, 10,000 is really where we're going to be.
Well, the neat thing is there's some original inked pages available that Kevin did.
Yeah, so I'll scroll down here. We have 5 variant covers that are available here, and as you go down, you'll be able to see them there, and then we got them here as well. We got 3 that I did. We got one from Brett and one from Kevin also, so you can get them individually as rewards, or you can buy the whole set. So they're all available. Here's some samples of the interiors. And then the rewards, and here's where you see those. But what I want to show you is the inked. So under the rewards, we have an inked original page of the cover Kevin did. He's the inker for the series. And that's a beautiful 11 by 17 marker and ink piece there. And then with that, you also get a physical copy of the issue with his cover on it. So you'll be able to do that. And then once you pick your reward, then you can go into the add-ons. And he has in the add-ons 14 inked pages from the interiors available as well. Those are first come, first serve. So whoever's the first one to grab one, you'll get first choice of what pages you can get, and so on and so forth. So those are available. And then we have all of our other Crimson Shadows stuff and others titles available here. So
yeah, we got the individual issues as well as the trade, and then we got some pins. So a lot of cool stuff. you need to catch up on some of that too, because that's a great story. And if you got the issues, you need to get the trade because there's a bunch of bonus content and additional story pages. It's a nice director's cut.
And if you've been thinking about the individual issues for Crimson Shadows, quantities are getting low. I'm just down to 2 covers here that I'm offering now because they're so low the quantities. So if you want to get in on the action on those original issues, they all come. They are shipped individually bagged and boarded, so they keep them really nice. We got a couple covers there, and then 4 covers for issue 4, and then 5 covers for the graphic novel.
Yep.
So check it out. Go in.
Yep. We are only about $410 away, so get in there.
Right.
Yep. So the other thing I saw some news-wise, I thought was interesting is they dropped a new Marvel trailer for next year's TV shows. And there's a bunch
I didn't see this.
It's brand new, animated and as well as live action. And then they also announced the Deadpool Wolverine, which is going to be on Disney Plus next month. So let me pull this up here, and it's on X, so the quality's not the best, but I'm playing it anyways. So here we go.
I brought you here to offer you an opportunity.
Oh, I smell what you're stepping in. It's gonna get good.
It's been some time, hasn't it?
I am looking forward to this.
You've come up in the world.
I could say the same about you.
I wonder if your darker half would agree. Exactly what kind of a lawyer are you? A really good one.
Miss me. Oh! I want to build something undeniable.
Anyone who's ever accomplished anything iconic in life has had to do some questionable things to get it done.
Up for an adventure?
The battle they will sing about for ages.
You can slate whenever you're ready.
Simon Williams, reading for Wonder Man. I was born to play this character.
And we both have a lot riding on this. You better not mess this up.
I know.
I am ready.
I am Marvel Jesus.
We have a long road ahead of us. Much to do.
Oh my God!
So the Daredevil, I'm definitely excited about. The animated stuff looks interesting too.
Thankfully, She-Hulk was really bad, and it forced Marvel to go back to the Netflix darker feel of Daredevil. My understanding is they were going to go with a lighter mood for theirs.
Yeah,
so,
I liked She-Hulk, and I don't think it should have influenced any other Marvel series. I thought what it was finding a little comedy and stuff like that. It's read like reminded me of some of the comics I've read over the years of She-Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
But Daredevil should be darker because the comics are dark for the most part. And it's been, by the time it comes out next year, it'll be almost 7 years since the last season of Daredevil. So it's been quite a while. But they got that new Wonder Man, which is coming out. And my understanding, reading up on it, that's the same character from Iron Man 3. That was supposed to have been, what's his name? It was Ben Kingsley.
Ben Kingsley, yeah.
He's playing the same actor guy.
He was the Mandarin, the fake Mandarin.
Yeah. He was like the fake Mandarin.
Yeah.
So, but he's an actor, and that's what this Wonder Man is supposed to be like a take on the Hollywood. I'm looking at it going, okay, it looks like you're going the same direction you did with She-Hulk. I like the Wonder Man comics I read, 30 years ago. I used to read those all the time. And so they're going a different take on it. So I'll give it a wait to see a real trailer on it, to see if it's worthwhile. The Ironheart, I've never really been thrilled with anyways. But I knew they had already filmed it 2 years ago. So it's been pretty much done. So I think it's one of those things that they said, let's just get it done and get it out.
Well, I think the backlash was so bad. What was it? She-Hulk? Because it was scheduled to come out, and then they pushed it back, and it was fully done.
Yeah.
So they delayed it for whatever reason, but so they're bringing it back out. I don't care about it. I'm not going to be watching that one.
Well, even in the comics, the comic fans, nobody really has gotten crazy about it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
it's fine. It'll be what it'll be on that. So that one coming out, I'm not too surprised just because they're not going to write it off. Disney's taken enough hits for write-offs that they're like, okay, we got to get this stuff out there. In the long run, it's better to lose after it's aired than to just write it off, kind of like what Warner Brothers did with that Scooby-Doo movie, and then there's another one they did too.
But with this, I mean, why not release it? You're a streaming channel. You need content. It's already done. I mean, it's not like you're spending money on distribution, and it's a digital content on your streaming service. So release it, and there will be some people who are going to love it, and then they can enjoy it. And
I think that's why they should do it. Just get it out there. If people like it, they like it. Go for it. If they don't, there's some things I've liked people didn't like, and vice versa. Especially the Marvel stuff. I just never could get into the Ms. Marvel stuff. It just, and I think it was just the way it was written for me. I just didn't catch on to that. I didn't see the Marvels movie mainly because I really just didn't care when it came to the Marvels and tying into the whole Marvel universe thing. The animated stuff, the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, I'll give it a try. Maybe we'll take a look at it. The Wakanda one looks okay, and that Marvel
Zombies looks good,
and they're going full TVMA with that, so they're not holding back on that. So it's gonna be their first kind of adult cartoon.
Yeah, so that one looks interesting. And the What If
is gonna be the last season. What If? Yeah, it's gonna be the last season for that. I did read that.
What I don't like about the What If series is it's not really What If; it's multiverse.
Right.
The fun of What If was it would explore outcomes if things happened in a different way, and it's really cool. But this is just different timelines merging together, and you have the Beyonder in it, and the Watcher.
And they've been okay, but at the same time, it is like that. It's like, oh well, here's a what if Captain America, if Steve Rogers died, Haley Atwell became. And I was like, but you guys actually did that though, and it was a different universe, and you didn't change much of that. I do like things like here's what happened, and here's one little thing. It was like the they did like what if versions of the original Star Wars movies and comics, and I love those. The first one was the best. The Jedi one was kind of they were pushing it because at that point the story's almost over, and you change one thing towards it. It doesn't make that radical of change like you would want, but the first one
exploring if everything else was the same, but one tiny choice was made different. How would that carry forward and stuff?
Yeah, and stuff like that, and that's why I like stuff like that. It's like what's the divergent? Where did it go and stuff like that.
Right.
And that's what I liked about the original What If. Of course, a lot of original What If comics actually became continuity because they just read, hey, that's a good storyline. We'll just go that way.
We'll do that. Yeah.
Stuff like that. So we got some Marvel stuff, which is interesting because I was reading about that in the same place I got the video. They're looking to replace Iger still. He's wanting to step down. He's not people shop, but trying to find the right person. But he said they're going to scale back on the Marvel series every year and stuff coming out. Well, next year we got like 6 series and then 3 movies. So there's a lot of Marvel content next year coming out. But a lot of it, though, looking at it, it's like, okay, this is some of the stuff like the Ironheart and even Daredevil was stuff that was already supposed to have been out and got pushed back for different reasons.
Yeah.
So dropping them next year is because they got to get it out because you can't wait much longer. You can't say, oh, we'll delay another year just because we don't have too much in 1 year. So the point now is just get it out there. So,
well, I gotta imagine they're low on content with the different strikes that happen. So they got content, or else people are going to start canceling their subscriptions.
Oh yeah, you got to get that stuff out there.
That's the real problem with streaming services. It becomes this consuming monster where you just got to keep producing just to have something. It doesn't matter if it's good or not.
Yeah. So, but I mentioned about the cancellation. Like Warner Brothers wrote off a couple films and all that, but got wrote off. We heard that was not releasable. Would have hurt DC. But Scoob,
Batgirl there.
Yeah, the Scoob Holiday Haunt, which was the second animated Scooby-Doo based on the first movie Scoob, is canceled. They've never said why. I think that was just a write-up. The Coyote versus Acme movie is actually getting released. Another company went and bought that, the rights to release it. So that's actually coming out, and that's a Looney Tunes movie.
Yeah, I never understood the Batgirl one. I understand if you don't want to release it as a theatrical release, but if it's all done, once again, you got content. HBO covers all the DC stuff. Throw it on there.
Well, considering that Warner Brothers and they all that's owned by the same company, they with writing it off, they can't do that. Someone else can come buy it now, like they did with the Coyote one. And I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see somebody eventually maybe buy it and release it somehow. I'm shocked same with the Scoop. That one I would think someone want to buy that and get it out there somewhere because it would definitely take off. But because it's Scooby Doo, people still love Scooby Doo. So
yeah,
but
but even taking it as a write off, if you released it. And if you didn't think it was going to make much money, especially through streaming, you could still write off 95% of the stuff and maybe make something on it. I don't know.
Personally, I think they should have just released it and took the loss as a loss instead of a write-off.
Yeah. Well, that's why what I'm wondering is, was it so bad that they determined it would actually hurt the brand?
Well, that's what they said. Brand? They literally said that it just was not as bad as some of the DC stuff been. To say that this was not good for the DC brand,
right,
says a lot. I mean,
there had to be something in it that was just so awful that it's like, okay, we're going to take a bigger loss releasing it than we will just.
I mean, it's had to have been worse than Catwoman.
Had to be
because that was horrible. The only reason that one got released because it was Halle Berry and she was hot at the time in terms of box office, and that killed her box office. So. Yeah. But we've been talking about some superhero stuff here, but I saw another thing and I always look at the trades, like the Marvel stuff I got from the Variety on Hollywood Reporter. They get an article, and I'll pop it on the screen here real quick. I'm not going to go through the whole article on that, but I find it interesting that we've had superhero fatigue, and now we're going to get horror fatigue. Hollywood is terrified of horror fatigue next year because there's so many movies coming out that are horror films.
No.
Well, no.
Horror fans love horror. It's there. You go to the horror conventions, you talk to horror fans, they can't get enough. There's all these independent companies making horror films, and their stuff gets.
Well, that's what it is. Smile 2 just came out a couple weeks ago. I guess it's done all right. I've not paid attention to it. This past weekend was Venom. The last Venom movie did like 51 million, stuff like that. You can kind of almost put that in a horror genre, but it's really not. But Smile 2 is the big one right now. I never saw the first one, so I don't know. I know the promotions because like even at the ball games, they had people for this one standing behind home plate with that smile on their face. Yeah. And that's what it was. And they first did it, people thought, what is all this crazy stuff popping up like on the morning news and stuff like that? But it's like they list all this stuff coming on, but it's like Terrifier 3. It's a lot of these are independent stuff, and I think the big thing is when you get the major studios dropping big bucks on a movie, and then it doesn't expect. It's like no, you gotta let the independent guys handle it. That's like next year we got Megan 2.0. You have another Saw coming out. You have a Black Phone 2. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 just got announced for December. So there's a lot coming out next year, but I don't think.
Go ahead.
I don't think it's going to be fatigue because it's not the same thing as like the superhero stuff. Yeah. This is superheroes aren't just a genre. It's like you're either like Marvel or DC.
Well, you got to look at what it is. Horror as a subgenre is a smaller genre. It's typically R-rated. And so it's a lesser crowd as it is, but they can do 90% less sales and still turn a profit.
Right.
So it's not going to go away. There is no fatigue, which makes me think that the Hollywood Reporter are the studios worried that the horror movies are going to overtake their blockbusters. And so they want to float the idea out there like, oh, you're getting fatigued. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, I think what it is, it's like you look at stuff like what did well during different years, and a lot of horror films, again, most of the time are profitable because you don't have to get much, like you said. Right. A lot of them are less than 10 million to get them out there, especially on the higher end. But then you get stuff like the remake of The Mummy with Tom Cruise, which just absolutely blew. It was just not a good movie.
Right. Because studios got involved.
Yeah, and they spent big bucks on that thing, and they're going to launch this new Dark Universe franchise with the Universal Monsters, and it was bad.
Had Universal just spent a fraction of the money and teamed up with Blumhouse, or is it Blumhouse or Grindhouse?
Yeah, Blumhouse, one of them. Yeah, Blumhouse. Yeah.
Teamed up with them and let them do their vision of their universe, it probably would have killed it. It would have been amazing. But instead, they went all Hollywood. hire Tom Cruise, which people in horror don't want to see Tom Cruise movies.
Yeah.
So like they're trying to force their version of a big blockbuster into it. It's not going to work. Just like with Marvel cars, the fans know who your horror fans are.
Well, and that's the whole thing. People like Blumhouse know who they're catering to, the movies they're doing.
Right.
You know, like doing the Five Nights at Freddy's. Actually, we're gonna come in with a film that had the jump scares, but wasn't the graphic horror.
Actually, they've been smart with what they're doing because they're taking the Five Nights, the Megan, all these things. They're going with this PG-13 horror.
Yes,
which is brilliant because now you're bringing the families in.
Yeah,
with those teenagers who want to see it, and even the kids when Five Nights at Freddy's came out, 9-year-olds love that stuff.
Yeah.
So you're creating something that a parent can be like, okay, it's a little bit PG-13, but my 9-year-old can handle it. So they'll bring them in.
Yep. And they did the Purge movies. You know, there's things they went out of their comfort, and he's been smart enough to not, like I said, try to go really huge budget top stars. You know, in a lot of ways,
they're doing good stories.
I think that all the stars, they want like 20, 30, 40 million up front. Take a back end deal. You make one alone if you make a good film. And that, but it's stuff like that. So I agree. I don't think there's going to be any horror fatigue at all because, and we see this for the horror shows we've done over the years. The horror fans, if it's good, they love it forever. And even the sequels, even when the sequels kind of get crappy, they're like, well, I still love the genre. I still love the franchise. And because you see that with the classic franchises we have of, the Freddy's, Jason, stuff like that has continued on throughout the years.
I've never met a horror fan saying, I think I'm getting tired of horror. I've never met a horror fan saying that.
No, and they'll watch some of the most garbage ones and like, it was crap, but
but they still like it because
it was my genre.
Or have a concept that was unique, or something about it. And
that's where Terrify is taken off because even though it's a clown that kills, it's been done a million times. It's the way they've gone about telling the story and the kills and everything else and the over the top goriness and things you never thought of and stuff like that has created a new horror icon really that's fallen in with like the Freddy, Jason, Candyman, all these ones over the last 40 years have really entrenched into the genre. So but I mean just
and even like the superheroes, like we said, there's no superhero fatigue.
No, it's crappy movie fatigue.
Crappy movies.
And that's the whole thing. People are just really tired of
between our normal day-to-day lives being hectic, the amount of entertainment content that's out there, we don't need to consume crap anymore. So if something's crappy, people are just like, I'm just going to get up and leave. I'm not even going to finish it. Or I'll wait till it's on streaming because I'm not going to bother with this. So there's too many options now to produce crap.
Yeah, and the problem is we're getting in is it's unlike the 80s with video stores. It was just being released on video. It's now being more readily available, and they're trying to push some things. It's like I just still could not believe the that Fall Guy movie. I was like, okay, I'll give it. I really couldn't get past 15, 20 minutes. It was just like it was bad.
Yeah,
it's horrible storytelling. And it's like, and they made the original trailer actually looked good. I was like, okay, I knew it wasn't gonna be great. I was thinking, okay, it'll be a mindless entertainment for a while. I wasn't even mindless so much going, oh, this is almost painful. Story sucks. And then part of it too is I know the original Fall Guy, in terms of the stories and stuff like that. And they completely reinvented it and made it feel like, Barbie's Ken went off to play Fall Guy. Which is what it was. So that's kind of what I got this week. That's not much else been going on. So, but we should revisit the Kickstarter before we sign off here today.
All right. I'll give a quick update too. I officially am in the Great Lakes Comic-Con in February. He used to call it Comic Expo, didn't he?
He's called it both.
Yeah. So now on the invoice it said Comic Con.
Yeah, it's one of the things with the initial lawsuits. Maybe we switched the names for a minute, and some kept the expo, some go back to con.
Yeah,
because it's kind of come out like, well, really, they were just going after the one show. It was not about everybody, but they were just protecting their brand. So
So, anyways, I will officially be at the Great Lakes Comic-Con in Warren, Michigan, this upcoming February.
Yep.
And then a couple weeks
I
later, I'll be.
I will not be. In fact, Mike got a hold of me to make sure whether I was coming or not. And I let him know that because I'm leaving for London a few days after, it just wasn't going to work with me being at both shows.
That'd be rough.
In that, so just a lot to do to get ready. You want to make sure everything's set for the one show, and so I have to try to prep for 2 shows back to back, especially with one being an international show.
Yeah.
But Scott's gonna be there representing Bardstone, so you'll be able to get all the fun books and that.
Yep, and then I'll post the link one more time. Last Light.
Yep, and you can choose your covers, or you can go with the 5 cover option. There is those in there as well as the other cool add-ons with the pages and stuff like that. So definitely check it out.
Click the link, click on back this project, and choose your reward. You can also see the rewards along this side here. As you scroll down, you'll see a description of each.
Yep.
And then, or you can get them all 5 covers. And then once you choose that, then you go to the add-on menus, where you can add Crimson Shadows books, Frankenstein, Jekyll and Hyde novels, digital editions, enamel pins. We got lots of stuff there. So go check that out.
Excellent. All right. Hey, y'all have a safe, happy Halloweens. Be safe tonight on Devil's Night.
Yeah.
And we will see you after the election next week.
Oh, yeah.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.